Hello, in this academic skills video, learn how you can incorporate all that wonderful research you've done for your assignment to support your analysis and present a strong argument. We provide tips and strategies for using others' work and ideas with academic integrity and for distinguishing your argument from the papers you review. Using the work of others in your assignments is required practice at university. Part of what it means to belong to an academic community is being conversant with the scholarly debates and ideas and issues that your community are interested in. In your classes and through your course readings and independent research for your assignments, you'll be introduced to a range of ideas, perspectives and studies that have helped shape knowledge in your field. As a student in your field, you are invited to demonstrate what you think about these ideas and why. The originality of your work will come from your own interpretations of the work of others, the connections that you see, and how you apply these ideas and theories in developing your argument. Drawing on supporting evidence from the literature helps you to develop a persuasive and reasoned argument for your assignments. It helps you to argue from a position of authority. This is because incorporating sources shows that you have found relevant studies and material. It also demonstrates that you understand the source's main ideas and contributions to scholarly debates. Importantly, it shows your marker evidence that you can critically apply the work of other scholars to answering your assignment question. It shows your marker how you are supporting your argument or key message. Much of your evidence will come from your research of academic sources, both current and relevant. There are 4 main ways to use information from sources: in a summary, paraphrase, quotation, or synthesis. Always include appropriate acknowledgement of the original source. How? By referencing. Summarizing and paraphrasing both involve restating someone else's ideas in your own words and show that you understand and can interpret their ideas. Summarizing and paraphrasing are therefore great ways to help you start writing early on your assignment and to think about your position and argument. The difference is mostly a question of length of the original text as well as purpose. Generally, summarize when you wish to provide a concise overview of a source. Pull out the main ideas and restate them succinctly in your own words. What is the study about? Or what did the author find or argue and why? If a particular source is central to your task and you need to engage in a sustained discussion of the source, it is important to make clear to the reader that the ideas under discussion are from the same source. Swales and Feek suggest using summary reminder phrases to be explicit. In this example of an extended summary, note the use of summary reminder phrases in blue. A good summary paragraph often incorporates some paraphrasing. Indeed, it's good to paraphrase when you wish to provide specific detail or evidence from the source to support particular ideas. As paraphrasing requires you to follow the original text more closely, it's harder to do correctly. When paraphrasing, you can use some important terminology, but the wording and sentence structure must be changed without changing the meaning of the ideas. This is an example of an inappropriate paraphrase, as the student has closely followed the wording and sentence structure of the original. Like with summarizing, aim to capture the essence of the author's ideas in your own words. Quoting directly from a source can be quite an effective way to provide specific evidence from that source, especially when used with a clear purpose and sparingly. Quote when there is something particularly well expressed, written by a key thinker, and where the thinker is making a particularly important point. It is most effective when you wish to, for example, draw attention to an author's definition of a key term, critically evaluate the meanings attached to specific words or phrases, and or you wish to demonstrate the essence of the author's argument. Be careful to introduce the quote and show your understanding by explaining what the quote means in the context of your answer. When quoting, you are copying someone else's words exactly as it is in the original source. Use quotation marks to indicate this as well as provide a reference. Because you don't just rely on one source for your assignments but multiple sources, it's important to develop good synthesizing skills. Synthesizing is a higher order method of incorporating text and is useful when you need to pull together multiple sources that have similar ideas to develop your argument and demonstrate wide reading. Take a look at some published review articles in your area. They often provide good examples of how scholars synthesize the work of others. In this sample synthesis, the writer draws on two sources to support their point about economists and behavioral scientists. When synthesizing, it helps to group the sources based on their similar ideas or contrasting ideas rather than simply summarizing each source at a time. Grouping your sources will help you to identify key issues or themes and work out a structure for your writing based on your overall argument. A good tip is to look for relationships and contradictions between different sources or ideas. What are the schools of thought? Where is their agreement? What are the author's different viewpoints? How can these differences be explained? Can you see any key issues or themes emerging? Synthesizing sources demonstrates your critical thinking, that you understand how these studies relate to each other and can discuss these relationships in a meaningful way. When using sources, don't try to include everything, only what is relevant to the purpose of the task. Show your understanding of the source's argument and relate the sources to your own work. Always include appropriate acknowledgement of the original source by providing a reference. Apart from referencing the source, there are other things that you can do in order to ensure that you are using sources appropriately, accurately, and with academic integrity. Your quotes, for example, must match the original exactly, so recreate the exact spelling, capitalization, punctuation, and font style. Make sure your quotes are also formatted correctly and include a citation and page number. Be sure to introduce your quote and explain what the quote means. It's important to contextualize the quote so that you don't take it out of context. For more tips, see our video on quoting. Remember that when it comes to paraphrasing, you can use some important terminology, but the wording and structure must be changed without changing the meaning of the idea. In fact, aim to summarize rather than paraphrase. Paraphrasing one sentence after another risks you replicating the same structure of the original. What's more, you miss the opportunity to show critical understanding of where the idea fits within the overall big picture. It is thus generally a good idea to summarize the entire article with your assignment question in mind first. This way, you test your understanding of the source's argument and significance before paraphrasing key points. Doing so means that when you do paraphrase, you are not taking specific ideas out of their broader context. Having a systematic approach to reading, taking notes, and writing can be helpful to ensure that you use sources correctly. It's important to critically read the literature with your assignment question in mind, and take notes to gather relevant information. Take notes that critically engages with the arguments of the author. Most problems with plagiarizing occur when this middle step is skipped over, as that is when there is a tendency to just swap in a few words here and there without proper paraphrasing. So when it comes to writing, it is advisable to summarize, paraphrase, and synthesize from your notes. Break down your assignment question into smaller questions to focus your research and help you to find relevant evidence for answering the questions. When reading, identify key ideas or information relevant to the question. Breaking down the notes into some key points that are relevant to the question is an important step in the paraphrasing process. Your notes should be pulling out the key ideas from the short passages of the original source, and when doing this, you should already be rewriting these ideas in your own words. When you do go to write the actual paraphrase, it's best to look away from the original text and to use your notes if you need. A good paraphrase will be different from the original, yet still convey the same idea. It may take you several attempts to get it right. Remember to include a citation. You can appreciate what paraphrasing is harder to do properly than summarizing, as you are closely following the ideas of the source. To be sure that you therefore paraphrase appropriately and with integrity, use this approach. It's important to check that you've paraphrased correctly, so compare what you have written to the original. Have you conveyed the same meaning, used different words, changed the original sentence structure, and provided citation? If you've done all the following, then you've paraphrased correctly. Turnitin can help check your work and diagnose any problems straight away, so it's a good idea to use it. In order to get the best marks for your assignments, you need to do more than simply summarize, paraphrase, and synthesize correctly. You need to show your critical thinking. You need to be able to show your marker that you can critically analyse and interpret the evidence that you have found, and make it clear to readers where you stand on the specific issues. In this example, the student moves from being neutral to being evaluative. The key phrases are highlighted to show very clearly how the student critically engages with the source in developing their argument. It also clearly indicates which ideas belong to whom. The second phrase, in purple, indicates to the reader that the second sentence is still part of the summary of Tal and Taylor's position. The green phrases signpost the student's critical argument. In the last sentence, the student importantly moves beyond Tal and Taylor's argument to draw out an implication. It's important to make it clear to readers where you stand on the specific issues you've identified and why. Distinguish your ideas from others' ideas by showing your critical analysis and developing your voice. Voice and stance are interrelated. To adopt a stance requires being evaluative and showing a commitment to your ideas and judgments, and you do this by clearly distinguishing your ideas from the sources that you draw on. Every writer has their own voice. Writers' choice of words and phrases can signal voice and stance. By using certain words and phrases, we indicate the strength of our views and how we are situating our position in the research. So your choice of language can thus express very clearly what you think about an author's argument, research, or contribution to knowledge. In this published example, the author Ronaldo shows us clearly where he stands on Mahmoud's work. He says that Mahmoud's work has helped social scientists. However, he ultimately argues that there are limitations to Mahmoud's work. So use your voice. Take a position and show your reasoning. Decide what point you wish to make about the text and make it clear what your arguing or key message is. Do this by making sure that the reader knows when you are paraphrasing from the source and when you are making your own comments. Use verbs and adjectives to convey your positive or negative appraisal of the source, and use language to express the extent of your commitment to particular ideas. It helps to familiarize yourself with the writing conventions of your field or discipline. Here are some examples of how your choice of language, specifically use of adjectives and verbs, can express very clearly what you think about an author's argument, research, or contribution. Some words are more endorsing while others are less so. Thanks very much for watching this video. To recap, summarize relevant material for completing your tasks. Keep the bigger picture in mind when paraphrasing. Ask yourself, where does this idea fit within the author's overall argument? Synthesize shared ideas and quote only if you really need to. Critically analyze and interpret sources and always provide a reference. Remember, incorporating evidence from the literature to develop and support your argument, and doing so with academic integrity, takes plenty of time and practice. So start your assignments early and allocate sufficient time for editing your work before submitting. For more advice, check out our videos on paraphrasing and summarizing, quoting, synthesizing, and plagiarism and misconduct. Don't hesitate to make an appointment with us if you would like feedback on how you are using sources in your writing to develop your own ideas and voice.